I think of the one area in a business that can have the most impact, the thing I probably see the most is going to be the frame business. The frame business is, really, it is the one that is your largest financial investment. And to be honest, it can get out of control the quickest.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody stocks contact lenses anymore, but we all stock frames, and it is a large investment. I remember times when my optician would come to me and say, I just got this great deal on frames, and we're going to try to spread out the billing, but we're going to have some high bills for a few months here. So yeah, it can definitely impact your bottom line and certainly your cash flow.
Yeah, and one of the key things is frames. You'll notice the most, and I don't know if this happened to you or not, but one month we have a high bill, the next month we have a low bill. I call it the
Hmm.
roller coaster of frames. It's up and it's down, and that's probably the question I get asked the most: is how can we control that? And really, the simplest way to control it is, number one, when we get that deal, the opticians are going to come to us and say we got a deal. It's not such a great deal if you don't need frames. Number one, if you're going to buy the frames and they're going to sit in a box, what have you done? You've just,
Right.
put your money into it. But really, it's okay to not sell from the board. We're always so used to selling frames from the board, but it's okay to have them drop shipped to the lab. People don't expect us to have their glasses ready, in an hour anymore, like it was several years ago. But it's okay to leave those frames on the board and just have them drop shipped to the lab. If you don't want to do that, you need to reorder your frames. And when you reorder your frames, don't wait 6 weeks. You need to reorder them at the time that you sold them because you've got the money in the checking account to pay for them. So that will help minimize that roller coaster, as I call it, that up and down billing. But
You
really,
know, Patty, you're so right. You're so right about eliminating that roller coaster. Right, cash flow is such an important component of our businesses, and as we think about going back to EBITDA, what is EBITDA? It's really tracking the cash flow of the business. So there's a direct correlation there. One thing I think we've all found through all of our years of consulting and working with so many practices across the country is this incredible roller coaster ride. So we take the product in, and then by the time we get the bill, we don't have the cash to pay for the product, and we're looking for these incredible extended terms, and we're always negotiating for tomorrow's money, and because yesterday's money's gone. To that extent, there's a lot of things in the industry today that didn't exist 20 years ago, as formally as they are today. There's a lot of board management strategies. There's a lot of organizations out there offering total board management and frame replacement programs. And I would definitely encourage folks, Patty, just to do what you said: leave the frames on the board, work with your vendors on setting up a total board management strategy, because that will level out your bills, and you won't have this roller coaster ride of feast or famine, and it'll level out your cash flow. So you're spot on in what you're talking about.
and that is, I would assume, Dr. Meeker, one of the hardest things to control.
It
I mean,
is,
just
and I was in a sense because I had an optician whose father was an optician, and a lot of us coming out of school, we're not really that well versed, and certainly not as interested in that end of it as we are in the pathology and the eye disease and those sorts of things, equipment. So a lot of us sort of hand that off, and we really need to keep more tabs on it ourselves as the owner of the business.
mhm, mhm. So, one of the things that you had asked too, what is the one thing that I see the most? And I did go to frames. So, can I show you just an idea of items and ways that you could track your frame business? And what we can do, and really ways, I guess we could kind of the uh-oh moment in some kind of scenarios. We can see how many frames we sold last year. And in January, we sold 259 frames. So far, then we sold 230 this year. We were down by 29 frames. We can also see that our patients were spending more money last year. They spent 118 last year. spent 110 this year. So we've got a drop by $8.07. Now, I always say if we put the pen to the paper, what's our lost revenue? The only way you can do that is really add up the numbers. If we had 230 patients spend $8.07 less, that is $1,800 in missed opportunities, just missed revenues. We sold 29 frames less. So 29 times our $110 here, that is $3,190. So in 2 categories of our frames, we've already made up for, what is that? That's almost $5,000 just in 2 categories. So you can see how when you don't monitor and you're not looking at these things, it can get out of control pretty quickly. Another thing is going to be, patients on frames and $0 frames. There's so many components of your frame business. It's not just about, which frames, are we selling and which frames do we keep in stock? I mean, that is part of it, but it is the key to seeing these types of things too. So I want to give you an idea. I mean, we've got patients on frames here. We all know what that is. Patient got lenses, they just didn't get a new frame. Think about it. I've got 66 patients that use their own frame in 1 month. If we think about there's an average of 20 working days in a month, that's 3 a day. This is a huge opportunity right here. It's just something as simple as we need to quit saying yes. And I'll admit I did it. We all, when we dispense, a patient would say, can I use my own frame? We'd say, sure. So you just have to be mindful of how many times you say sure or how many times you say yes. Same exact concept here with $0 frames. Our $0 frames are patients got a frame, just happen to be covered by their plan, or we may be doing some promotions and buy one, get one frees in our offices. Basically, the patient got a free frame. And we had 101 times that a patient got a free frame. So kind of look at it right here. We had 230 frames we sold and 101 of them were free. So Jay, I know you're going to have some suggestions right here.
Slower at clicking the buttons than you are. Well, you're right, Patty, that there's a lot of great information here. And again, on any one of these dashboards, we could spend a whole day and talk about all the different impact it has on the business. But patients own frames, $0 frames, to me, I always kind of laugh about it. I think about the deep end of the swimming pool where there's just nothing but opportunity for us to swim around and really have a good time. But the question then becomes, how do you attack this number? So if we know that we have this big opportunity here, and there's only an upside in having an impact here, it's really sitting down with the team and saying, okay, we're going to track on a regular basis all these folks that use their own frames. Did they have a plan? Did they have an entitlement? What were they looking for? Did we have the right product to even have a discussion with them about? In other words, where were the misses on our part and on how we had a conversation with them? And as a team, get together and make an assessment as what we should be saying and sometimes what we shouldn't be saying. And when it comes to $0 frames, there's no question. You're so funny. You're so right about just saying yes. People come in and say, I just want what I'm entitled to. And we say, sure, no problem. Whatever you're entitled to. Here's everything that's free. This whole board is free, and okay, great. But that's actually unfair to the patient because the patient never really finds out. And I consider it our professional responsibility to make sure the patient knows everything they're entitled to. Not just that it's free. We could show them the free frames and say, hey, this frame will cost you $1 and this frame will cost you $5 or nothing at all. But hey, I also wanted you to be able to compare to some of these other frames that might cost you $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, which you might want to compare the quality of the frames, the style of the frames, the fit and comfort of the frame, and then make a decision by looking at all of it, not just this small group of product that's free. And that really, for me, like I said, is our professional responsibility to make sure the patient knows everything they're entitled to, not just what's free. And I think that's the lead in on how to impact these numbers.
Jay, one thing we did in our office too is, the people at the front desk and the techs And the doctors a lot of times aren't really familiar with a lot of the frames. So I think it's helpful for your whole team to be aware of it. So at staff meetings, we would talk about certain frame lines and why they're better than others, and just get other people knowledgeable about the frames. And I think it helped out.
I think that's such a great idea. It is important to make sure everybody, the techs, the scribes, the docs, the lab folks, that everybody, not just the opticians, know about the frames and products. I love the conversations that our techs and scribes can have. I actually consider them first line of sales, right? Because they're listening, they're taking down the patient information, they're listening to patient complaints, they're hearing what they didn't like about their old glasses while they're doing the pre-testing. And if that person is then able to say, hey, Mrs. Jones, you know what? I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm so excited. When you get outside, I want you to go talk to Patty, because I know we got these 2 new lines of frames in, and ask her about these new line of frames. We're really excited about them. If that's all that person says, it's such a great tee up that allows the patient to be excited, that actually makes it easier for the optical, and everybody joins in. And that's without the person even knowing a lot about the frames, right? So everybody can play a part in making sure that the patient is aware that you have what's really good for them, and that what will ultimately, we use the words clear and comfortable. What is a patient really looking for? They're looking for clear vision, comfortable fitting eyeglasses, which has always been my favorite words. Patients want clear and comfortable vision. And we can do it. We just have to talk to them about it.
So when we think about an action plan in this area, you've got the same concept that we were talking about for monitoring your business. You've got to track your items. You could track something just as simply as these 4 items that we have right here. You've got, where were we at last year? What's our goal? Where do we want to be? And, Jay was spot on when he was saying we've got to share it with the team. If we don't all know where we're at, we can't grow. That's part of being, transparent and just really kind of showing where things are at.
So frame revenue is obviously very important in general, but even more important with vision plan patients. What can ECPs do to maximize revenue for vision plan patients?
And really, that's the key to it also. It's not just the frame revenue, but now we've got another piece. We have to dig a little deeper. And, that's when we're talking about, on average, what are my different components here, my 4 things, my frame sold, average frame sale, patients owned, zeros, what is that based off of our plans?